And for the news abroad, here's Stephanie C. live from Hong Kong. Good evening, Stephanie.
Good evening, William. United Nations agencies launch appeal for immediate funding and aid for those affected by Cyclone Idai in southern Africa. Here's Monokson to tell us why.
At least 500,000 Mozambicans have been displaced by Cyclone Idai, but that figure may rise to 4 times that in the aftermath of the devastation. The World Food Programme, UNICEF, and other UN agencies launched an appeal for immediate international funding and logistical support to save hundreds of thousands who remain isolated and with no access to food or clean water in Mozambique, Zimbabwe, and Malawi. In Mozambique, the government's estimates put the number of those affected by the cyclone at 600,000 in the provinces of Sofala, Manica, Zambezia, Inhambane, and Tete. The situation is particularly dire in the port city of Beira, where thousands are still on rooftops and in trees waiting to be rescued as the flood reached a height of 6 meters.
This situation is very an important crisis, and that must be seen as an important crisis. A lot is needed. I don't think that the world realizes yet the scale of the problem, especially in Mozambique.
Some 920,000 people were affected in Malawi, with some 82,000 being displaced. But UN officials said the impact was limited and people were returning to their homes on Tuesday as further assessments were underway. In Zimbabwe, some 15,000 people have been displaced, with Chimanimani and Chimpinge being the hardest hit districts.
You can see around us, it's atrocious weather conditions. The weather is still persisting, and despite that, everybody is helping, and we're offloading 20 tons of cargo manually by hand because the cargo has been destroyed by the cyclone.
The biggest challenge for the moment is access. Basically, what our colleagues say is that is all what they see all over is water. You see water. If people are lucky, they're on the roof, the rooftop of their house, and they sign, they ask for help. But a lot of other people that we know nothing about for the moment are not as lucky as that.
Zimbabwe's President Emerson Mnangagwa said his government is in the process of assessing damage to provide adequate assistance, adding neighboring countries South Africa, Botswana, Namibia, and Angola have offered help. Mon Hokson, UNTV News and Rescue.
New Zealand Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern said on Wednesday Foreign Minister Winston Peters will travel to Turkey to confront comments made by Turkish President Tayyip Erdogan on the killing of at least 50 people at mosques in Christchurch. Erdogan, who is seeking to drum up support for his Islamist-rooted AK party in March 31 local elections, said Turkey would make the suspected attacker pay if New Zealand did not. The comments came at a campaign rally that included video footage of the shootings, which the alleged gunman had broadcast on Facebook. Ardern said Peters would seek urgent clarification.
Yeah, and as I say, our Deputy Prime Minister will be confronting those directly in Turkey.
Meanwhile, Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison said he summoned Turkey's ambassador for a meeting during which he demanded Erdogan's comments be removed from Turkey's state broadcaster. Kazakhstan's President Nursultan Nazarbayev, the only man to lead the country since it emerged from the collapse of the Soviet Union in the early 1990s, has resigned. In a televised address, he said the decision was not easy, but he wanted to help a new generation of leaders. Nazarbayev, 78, has been largely unchallenged as leader of the oil-rich nation since 1989. He will retain much of his influence as head of the governing party. Nazarbayev said the Speaker of the Upper House of Parliament, Kassym-Jomart Tokayev, would take over as acting president for the remainder of his term, which expires in April 2020. The Supreme Court has given the Trump administration an immigration policy victory by ruling criminal non-citizens can be detained at any time. Kath Carriedo explains why.
The Supreme Court on Tuesday endorsed the U.S. government's authority to detain immigrants awaiting deportation anytime, potentially even years. The 5-4 ruling states federal officials may detain convicted immigrants indefinitely after they finish serving prison time, even years after. Advocates had argued the law only allowed for detention immediately after immigrants were released from prison. The court's liberal justices dissented from the conservative decision. Tuesday's ruling reversed a lower court decision that had found the existing law to mean federal authorities must detain convicted immigrants within 24 hours of their release from criminal detention. Civil rights lawyers had claimed after that deadline immigrants should be permitted a bond hearing so they were not forced to remain in custody indefinitely while their deportation case went forward. The Trump administration, however, said the government should be allowed to hold convicted non-citizens at any time, and the conservative majority top court has agreed. In the conservative opinion, Associate Justice Samuel Alito said the strict ruling was to ensure Homeland Security officials were not constrained by inappropriate deadlines to detain convicted non-citizens. Justice Alito also noted that it was not meant to target non-citizens who had served time and continued to lead legal lives in their communities, and said the decision still allows for those individuals to challenge the law on constitutional grounds if they are detained. The case brought before the top court was a California class action lawsuit by a group of non-citizens, most with permanent residency cards, whose lawyers agreed they should be entitled to a hearing if they were detained by federal authorities more than a day after their release from prison. Lead plaintiff Moni Priap was a legal resident who had 2 convictions involving marijuana possession. He was taken into federal custody in 2013, years after serving his prison time, but eventually won his deportation case. Kath Carriedo, UNTV News and Rescue, USA.
And those are the news from the other parts of the globe. Back to you, William.
Thank you very much, Stephanie C., reporting live from Hong Kong. Race leaders continue to dominate Cape Epic Mountain bike race in South Africa. Here's Asher Kadapan Jr. to tell us why.
The Swiss duo of Nino Schurter and Lars Forster continued their domination of the Cape Epic Mountain bike race with a 3rd straight win on Tuesday. After winning the prologue in Stage 1, the Swiss took Stage 2 as well, a 90-kilometer ride from Hermanus to Oak Valley, South Africa, which included total climbs of 2,250 meters. They held a 4 minutes 4.1 seconds lead over Manuel Fumic of Germany and Brazil's Henrique Avancini. The women's race had a similar outcome, with Annika Langvad of Denmark and Dutch Anna van der Breggen also winning for a 3rd straight day. The duo finished over 2 minutes ahead of Arjen Luthi of Switzerland and Poland's Maja Mostowska to extend their lead over the pair to 7 minutes 50.8 seconds. Candice Lill of South Africa and Germany's Adelheid Mora took 3rd place on the stage and were 3rd overall, but over 18 minutes behind the leaders. Asher Kadapan Jr., UNTV News and Rescue.
Fans of Harry Potter books and films can not just get a glimpse of, but also walk into one of the treasure troves in Harry Potter films, the Gringotts Bank. Abby Valdez will tell us why.
Run by goblins and boasting secure vaults guarded by a dragon, Gringotts Bank is where witches and wizards come to store their money and treasures in the world of Harry Potter. Now fans of J.K. Rowling's books and the blockbuster films can walk into the marbled hall of the Wizarding Bank in a new extension of Warner Brothers Studio Tour London, the making of Harry Potter, where sets from the movies have been recreated. With crystal chandeliers and quills, ledgers, and piles of wizard coins on Goblin Teller's desk, the set of Gringotts Wizarding Bank is the London attraction's biggest expansion since it opened its doors in 2012.
It was a real restoration process for you, wasn't it? To bring all of these back to life and back to kind of camera-ready condition. you know, because these sorts of products deteriorate very quickly in storage. So it's quite a feat to actually see them here looking as good as they do.
Everything you see here is we've made especially for the tour.
Yeah.
Also on show is the vault where villain Bellatrix Lestrange stored her valuables. There are rubberized golden treasures, costumes, and restored prosthetics for the film's goblin looks.
He wants me to hurry, but I will not control my feet. Oh, no.
You know, it's fantastic being back here on the original Gringotts Bank set, where over 10 years ago now I played Griphook here, this guy down the front, the good-looking one.
The Gringotts Bank set opens to the public on April 6th.
I'm gonna take my time, 'cause I don't really wanna go to work.
Abby Valdez, UNTV News and Rescue.
And those are the reasons behind the news this March 20, 2019. On behalf of Rina Villamor Camara, I am William Theo. And before we close, we will recap with today's significant sound bites because we need to know. We will always ask why. Good evening.
Sinabon naman kami pero binalawang kami pagkatapos. Kayanin natin yan, kakayanin natin yan. If I cannot do it, I will resign immediately.
We are confident na we will have ample supply even during the summer months. No? Huwag lang magkakaroon ng unforeseen emergency situation.
If you pursue them in one place, they will go into a different place within the same region. So, minabuti na ng COMELEC na yung buong region na ang ilagay sa category red na hotspot.
This situation is very an important crisis, and that must be seen as an important crisis. A lot is needed. I don't think that the world realizes yet the scale of the problem, especially in Mozambique.